And we're talking about how we got this object right there in. It's a little bit different than the other way that you've worked with text before. So this object here it's not the 3D rendered text we worked with initially. When you start one, you can get the text render actor over here. And this is different, but I just want to show you there is a difference between this object that we can change as easily as exposing the, on the right-hand side over here, let me see, I dragged this onto the scene. It says text. Now in the lower right-hand corner, I can update that as easily as saying hi, just like that. And that changes dynamically this little object. Let me move it forward a little bit. I have an extra W in there. Who, he, hi. There we go. So this is not a 3D object. It's just a text render that shows up in the scene. So if we were to play this just for a quick second, play this level, and I were to walk over in that part of the room just to demonstrate the difference between them as far as what they look like in-game, because they both communicate. Like there's the hi. You see the hi is very, very subtle there. And the other one's a 3D object. So as you go to put your name in, I want you to get used to doing things that have a little bit more of an effect. And let's talk about where this object came from right there. This object is in a folder down here called the content folder. So now I've moved myself over here. I'm talking about the content browser area. And I want to emphasize for you, am I sharing my screen properly for you guys? Chris, we did the hour of code yesterday. So let's make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. What we're doing right now is we've got 3ds Max open and we're looking at Unreal. We were just talking about this sample text that's out there. This one up here. So what we're doing is we're grabbing, now this is the content browser. If you look above the little blue box there. And if you don't see this file structure, you can click here to reveal it. And in the content folder, everyone's going to build their own folder. For example, you might have one that says JD Cool Stuff. But in the starting sample, you're going to see a couple of different pieces of text I put out there. This is the one we're going to play with. It says judged. Okay, now this came from 3ds Max. Now what I've had students do is open up 3ds Max and then open up that file. And in the earlier session, I already updated it because before that it said judged. Now the way to change this, now I'm in 3ds Max. I'm looking at the file called sample text. And I'm going to come over in the right-hand corner over here where I see the modify panel. The modify panel is the one that looks like a box around a bent line. And once I'm exposed the stack here, I can come down to this where it actually is a text element, and that will expose the text. It's going to be right above the blue box here. And if I change it to say something like, I need a sample name here. Superman. Whatever your name is, whatever you want to use for your, like your creator logo, you can do so. That's basically all you need to do is to update that part of it, and then you can export this to be used in a different part of your game. Yes, you could further manipulate it. And while we're in here, just going to briefly highlight that the bevel, which is, I've just moved myself up from the text up to the bevel. And now that I've done so, I can expose the settings on the outline here. Let me maximize the viewport here that we're using so you can see it a little bit better. And if I were to scroll in on an edge of a letter, you'll see this bevel is dealing with the rounded edges on a letter, all of them actually. If I change those values, making them higher or lower, I can actually change the effect of my bevel. And these settings can be adjusted based on your preferences. You can make it flare out. You could have it shrink back. This is really your control here. You can even add a third level on your bevel, and as you add the third level, you can decide if you want to have that, come out or scroll in. However you want to do it. Now that's much more 3D there. I've just made a couple more changes. So there's my Superman, or whatever your name is. Let me take a look in the lab as I pause this demo for a minute and see where people are at and make sure people aren't lost and have got their change made. Hope I'm doing the demo here. Oswin's got his. Jacob's got his. Kenny's got his. JD's got his. Excellent. So now that we've got it here, let's pick up at the next point. You got to make sure that your object is selected. This is true anytime that you go to export something from one product to another. So the W key is the move and select. And so let's make sure we have our object selected. Once it's selected, what we're going to do is we're going to come up to the top where it says File. And under here, we're going to look for the word Export. Under Export, I would like you to use something called the Game Exporter. Now, we could export to the format called FBX, which this is going to do in a different way, but we're going to actually use this interface called the Game Exporter. We're just going to do the model. You'll notice the model tab is highlighted. And I want to make sure you have smoothing groups turned on. I'm using the upper left-hand corner of the box. Use Turbo Smooth, and do use Triangulate. Now, Triangulate is not a requirement for the Unreal Engine. However, it is something that will help you greatly when you move from engine to engine, because some engines work best with triangles. If you don't include smoothing groups and Turbo Smooth, you might get a warning message when you import this that it does not have smoothing groups. If we had taken the time to actually give this detailed UV mapping, we would want to also include a pelt or a skin here, which I believe is not even being offered as an option right here. Oh, there goes skinning. There we go. The skinning is in fact a pelt. So if we have more than one color, we could deal with that, but that's not important at this use. You got to make sure your path points to where you want to put it. So in this case, you're going to want to make sure this points to your H drive with the folder you just created. Now, changing the folder path can be done by clicking on the folder and then browsing to where you want to go. Now, under My Computer, yours is going to look a little different. You're going to look for the one that has your ID number here. Okay? It's going to be your H drive, basically. And you could type in a capital letter H with a colon and a backslash, and it'll bring you to it. And then if you type in Unreal, it gets you to the Unreal that follows this format, and put it in one that is a folder that you to hold your own stuff. So if you need help with that, let me know. If you're not sure how to create a folder. Okay. So when you type in H, did you copy the project over yet? Okay, H colon backslash Unreal. Okay, you called yours Unreal Engine rather than Unreal. Okay, I throw a backslash in there. Hour of code, I put a backslash there. Come down to content, I put a backslash there. And then I'm looking for where your folder is there. Well, I'm going to put it in judged for now. We can always move it. Okay? So now it knows where to put it, and then a file name. So down here, you're going to want to put your whatever name that you're interested in putting in there, like Oswin or whatever. To put it is in a content folder. There I've got some text. And now before I export it, I did miss a step. Let me go back one. I know this is in the right place, but if you were creating your own scene and you had this somewhere different, like I'm just randomly moving it off here, before you export it, make sure that in the Move tool, if you look below my blue box, the position is at 0, 0, 0. So if I right-click in these spots, what I hope to find is that it is now at 0, 0, 0. The reason this is important is when you bring it into the game engine, the move handles are going to be exactly where like the center of the object is going to try to place right there. And it will really throw you if you end up with your pivot point at a different location. Bottom line, make sure it's in the middle of the world before you do the export we talked about. Quick review on what we were doing before is we were doing File, going down to Export, and we were using the option called Game Exporter. Make sure you've got smoothing groups, turbo smooth, triangulate. I'm going fast because we did it before. Skinning's fine, definitely important if you have a character. Make sure you put it in a path that you can keep track of. Every time I wiggle the mouse back and forth, it closes a bunch of stuff. A little annoying. All right. And then give it a file name. Now, the student name is already in use in the project that I've been using. Just for grins and giggles, I'm going to go into... Now, don't do this yourself, but I'm going to put this in the same spot that I had... Let's see, the backslash. Oh, can I do a browse here? Here's where I want to do that. I:\\\. Unreal 0. Oops. Hour of code. Hopefully it remembers it there. In the content folder, I built a folder called Judged. I've also done a couple more demos, like this one called Demo and one called Student. I'm going to go right back into the Judged folder, and these are the ones I used before. So I'm going to use Judged FBX, for example, or Sample Text from Max, either one. I can overwrite it. So there's my directory. I'm going to click on the word Choose. That's not the file name. And I'm going to call it Judged. I'm going to overwrite it with the word. I'm going to click on Export here. It says it exists. You want to replace it. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to click on OK. I'm done in 3ds Max now. I've exported this text, and the project should update and actually show me what's going on here. There we go. Now, into the Unreal Game Engine. If you don't already have it open, please open up your version from your H drive and put yourself in a folder of your own making with your own name. And again, just to re-emphasize, over in this corner of the content browser, make sure you turn on folders and find the one that you're working with. Now you might notice I've got color on a couple of them. That's something that is not required, but it's certainly kind of fun. You can right-click, and you could do things like add to favorites. I'm not going to do that right now, but I can set a color, and I can color code my folders. Some people really like this, some people don't. We're going to click on the word import here, and basically it's going to say where is this thing you wish to update or import. And so I'm looking at my folders here, and I see this one was last updated right now. So that's the one I'm going to open. It's going to import basically this. The default should be fine. I just want to point out one thing on this import dialog, which is skeletal mesh. We're bringing in a static mesh, which does not have any animations. If we wanted to animate something, it would need to have a skeleton, and we would do a skeletal mesh, but that doesn't apply here. The other thing is to auto-generate collision is fine. It'll put a rough approximation around your object, and as you went through yesterday's hour of code, if you don't have collision, your character goes right through it. There could be an instance where you want to have something that you want to go through. You can later turn off or on collision, but I'd like to have it auto-generated myself, easier and faster. And I'm just going to click on Import All. And what you'll find is in the folder that I now have a new object, which is my text object that says Superman. And I'm just going to drag that into my scene as an example. And you can use the move, scale, and rotate tools to put it into a position where you can see what it says. Now there's a part of this sample level where it's almost as though you're flying. You might want to actually build something like this and throw it out there. But that's basically how you can now replace this with your own name. And in any further projects, you can do that as well. All right, there I am playing. I just want to show you Superman is there. So that was just to demonstrate a process of creating your own or modifying your own and putting it in there. Now, I made this thing full screen by pressing the F11 key. I noticed yesterday people turned in screen captures. They may have done them a number of different ways, but they weren't full screen. And so I thought, oh, I should show you guys how to do a screen capture.